as many people have commented. And how many people have ever heard the saying, I don't know why the planet is called Earth when it should so clearly be called ocean? You guys have heard that before. And who said it for extra credit? It was Arthur C. Clarke, which I learned or remembered because someone was wearing a T-shirt that attributed that quote just yesterday. I was so pleased. So anyway, obviously he was right on target. So what I'm going to do is talk about some of the marine resources that we care about and how marine protected areas can be used as a really effective tool for conservation, and then some examples of how MPAs are being used. So the Science on the Sphere is a great way to show global data, so I'll be telling you a little bit about some of the issues that MPAs are trying to deal with right now as we address some of these threats to marine resources. So first, we're going to talk about what some of these resources are. So this shows habitat that's suitable for mangroves. And again, as I'm sure many of you know, mangroves are incredibly important habitat. They provide nursery habitat. They buffer shorelines against storm surge. They provide a wealth of ecosystem services. And one of the most important services that we're just starting to appreciate a lot more is the storage and sequestration of carbon. And so we refer to mangroves as one of the blue carbon habitats. They're actually far more effective than mature tropical forests in storing and sequestering carbon. So we're really starting to recognize that not only are they incredibly important for wildlife and fish habitat, but also for their carbon storage. The next data set that we're going to look at here is seagrasses, and again, here this is habitat that's suitable for seagrasses. So would that we had seagrass beds that were this large over these areas. In some cases there may be, in others this is more about habitat suitability. But again, these are very valuable nursery habitats. These are species that many juvenile fish, crabs, other marine life depend on as they migrate out of these areas and into open water when they mature. Then we're going to look at coral reefs. Coral reefs are one of the most important marine habitats on a per acre basis. They have greater species richness than any other marine habitat, over 7,000 marine fish and hundreds of species of hard coral. These are incredibly important for livelihoods. They support people's fishing, diet, also ecotourism. So these are extremely valuable habitats. There has been some work done on the economic value of coral reefs, and they're in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's something that obviously people are very concerned about protecting, and a lot of coral species have a very small range. And so marine protected areas have been used for a long time to protect coral reefs because they do limit those local impacts on a very sensitive resource. So next, we're going to look at species richness. This is a data set from UN FAO, and what it shows is the diversity of commercial fish species that have been caught. You can see the higher pink and yellow numbers are the higher species diversity. And again, this gets at the importance of coastal fisheries for local livelihoods as a food source, and the potential for marine protected areas to protect these very productive areas and help us manage those so that they can continue to provide those ecosystem services and food. So now we're going to get to marine protected areas, and this is a data set of all global marine protected areas. This is from the World Conservation and Monitoring Center as of July 2016. So this is the very big picture. This is all of the marine protected areas that WCMC has on record, and it doesn't distinguish at this point what kind of marine protected areas they are. So there are a lot of different purposes, a lot of different levels of protection, but they are all focused on protecting marine biodiversity and ecosystems. But of course, marine protected areas are not the only spatial tool that we use in the oceans, and I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on the different kinds of spatial tools that we use, but I am going to provide you just with one example of North America as the globe spins around. You'll see in green, those are all the fishery management areas that we manage. And so those are managed by local fishery management councils with NOAA. with a lot of public involvement, and they ensure that species are being managed sustainably for commercial and recreational fisheries. They're not MPAs, but they really complement the work that MPAs do. And if any of you are interested in getting a sort of more in-depth picture of all of these different spatial management tools, Protected Seas has a booth, and they are really delving into this issue, just down the hallway here. So now we're returning to the World Conservation Monitoring Center data set, and these are, in yellow, these are sites that are either fully or partially no-take. So the no-take refers to areas where extractive uses are prohibited. That means you can't fish, you can't mine, you can't dredge, you can't, remove any kind of resource. And the reason that we do that, it may seem obvious, but there are some resources that are very sensitive that need that high level of protection. And the management of any area is tied to the management objective, right? What are you trying to achieve? And in some areas where we have a lot of sensitivity, we have a lot of threats, no-take is the appropriate use, and that's the appropriate tool, and that's what's being shown here. So these are ones that are either partially or fully no-take, and then here in red are the areas that are completely no-take, according to the best data that we have. Now, this is just an interesting geography lesson about how we display data. What you'll see here is the no-take areas, and here, at this scale, at this global scale, you can't see a lot of the really tiny, small-scale, community-based marine protected areas. They're there, we just can't see them. And so one of the things that we can do is outline them. You see a whole lot more now because we've drawn a little red circle around the small ones. But if you thought that this was representative of the area of no-take, you would think there was a lot more no-take just because we've drawn a circle around all those small areas so you can see them. So this just gets at kind of how we show the picture of what's happening in the ocean, what scale and what kind of details we want to be able to show you. Yikes. This went somewhere. Thanks. Okay. So now we're going to go back to the picture of the oceans. This is kind of beautifully hypnotic picture of sea surface currents. And the ocean is connected. It's an obvious thing at every level, from the sea floor to the sea surface, with the air, it's connected to the land. And this really shows us why we've been taught to refer to the ocean. There's one global ocean, and it's all connected. And of course, those connections move marine life from one place to another. We have larvae and juvenile fish and eggs being swept from one area to another. It may be tens of miles away, maybe thousands of miles away. And that's why it is so important to manage these areas together, to cooperate and to create networks so that we can really effectively manage these places. So another challenge that we have, of course, is climate change. And what this shows is that the sea surface temperature anomaly. So this is the change in surface over time. And what you can see is over a 30-year average, the red is showing areas that increased compared to that 30-year average. So the simple message is that the oceans are getting a lot warmer. And of course, we're going to be hearing a lot more about that. There's going to be a report issued about warming oceans in the next day. And I think we'll learn a lot more about that. But obviously, that brings serious impacts with it. We know about coral bleaching. And they also lead to species migration patterns changing, species distribution changing, other kinds of threats to marine species. So it's definitely something that we're having a direct impact on the ocean now, and we need to look at ways to try to mitigate that impact. So what I wanted to do now is just give you some examples of some marine protected areas that are in place around the world and the ways in which they're addressing some of these issues. So this is Cabo Pulmo in Baja, Mexico. It is a community-based MPA. It was established in 1995. It's considered to be one of the most successful small-scale MPAs in the world. It's done a tremendous job restoring fisheries and helping sustain livelihoods for people who live in this community. And so what you've got is a community that decided they had a problem. They wanted to take care of their marine resources. They established this MPA, they manage it, and now they're seeing the benefits of it, and they're able to really, kind of create a future for their community and for their ocean. Now, at a different scale, we're going to talk about the Florida Keys. The Florida Keys is a complicated, crowded, highly impacted system. It includes a national marine sanctuary, it includes a couple of national parks, several wildlife refuges, and then the state manages some of it. So jurisdictionally, it's really complicated. As you can see from this picture of all the people tied up with their boats, it's a huge attraction for people. Some of which are not really thinking a lot about the sensitivity of the resources. They're just going to have a good time. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done to manage the people who are flooding into this area to try to, enjoy it. And so there's a tremendous amount that's been learned in the Florida Keys about how to manage people, how to protect the resources, establish mooring buoys to prevent people from dropping anchors onto the coral, zone areas so that you can keep sensitive resources more protected, keep some of the motorized vehicles out, and allow people to do some recreational fishing inside those areas where they need quiet. So there's a tremendous amount that's been learned, and one of the things that we're now really excited to have the opportunity, you saw that picture of connectivity, and of course there's a tremendous connectivity in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. And now we have an opening relationship with Cuba, so we're able to have that kind of exchange among marine protected area programs where we can learn from each other because we have the same resources. One of the things that we heard one of the scientists who's been studying this area say is that Cuban fish grow up to be American fish. And we all have an interest in making sure that this ecosystem stays healthy. And so we're really excited about this partnership that's just getting going between the U.S. and Cuba and also with Mexico. And the last MPA I just wanted to highlight is Moto Mojiro Kibo, which is in Chile, very remote oceanic ecosystem, high levels of species endemism, extremely healthy ecosystem, lots of big predators, sharks, and of course it's also very culturally important to the Rapa Nui people. This is an area that's located a couple of 100 miles east of Easter Island, an extremely pristine ecosystem, and this has been given a very high level of protection by the Chilean government. So you can see that marine protected areas are a very flexible tool. They can be community-based, they can be at the national level, they can be extremely large scale, and I think the key is to really look at what are you trying to accomplish and how can MPAs help get you there. So I'm going to stop there. If any of you have any questions. All right, thanks very much.